Welcome. And I want to talk to you today about breakdowns. And I'll give you a warning that breakdowns, in the context I'm using them, might not be what you think they are. But before we start, I invite you to take a moment to reflect on what mood are you in, or what emotions are you experiencing. So take a moment and just make a note for yourself. In the slide, I've got the results of people who've participated in this program or in a program I've run and shared about breakdowns. And when they reflected on the moods they were in, you can see they were in quite a range. Tired and frustrated, but happy, hopeful, peaceful, stressed, optimistic, content. However you are is just fine for what we're doing today. And if you notice you want to make a shift in your mood, you want to be more present here, feel free to do that. Well, Bob Dylan noticed the times were a-changing, or the times they are a-changing, something like 58 years ago. And long before him, in the 1800s, the philosopher Schopenhauer said, "Change alone is eternal, perpetual, immortal." And somewhat before him, the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus is recorded as saying, "There is nothing permanent except change." So while it is likely we're living in a time of unprecedented change, we're absolutely not the first people to think times are changing. And I'm curious for you to think about your experience of change, like particularly at work at the moment. And I invite you to just pause the video and take a couple of minutes to write down a couple of things, 2 or 3 important things you've noticed have changed recently in the last few years, and a couple of important things you think are likely to change in the next year, in the next few years, could even be next year. Okay, just reflect on what's been changing, what changes are you anticipating. When you're ready, pause the video and then come back here. Welcome back. It's interesting. A lot of people talk about change, digital change. If you're in government, the machinery of government changes, changes in work practices, changes around COVID, changes with technology, climate change, changes in our personal circumstances and relationships, even changes during a given day. That idea, we come to work wanting to get certain things done, and our plans constantly seem to change. But whether change is disruptive for us, or it's just something we observe and notice and deal with, depends on how change touches our emotions. If it touches in some ways, it's disruptive to our lives. Other times, what could seem a big change to one person is merely a minor interruption to someone else. And I want to introduce the term breakdowns, the title of this presentation or this talk. And as I said, breakdowns are probably not what you're thinking. And I invite you to think about, well, what does come to mind when you think or hear the word breakdowns. Now, if I was in a live webinar, I'd ask you to call out or write them down. But today I'll share a few things other people have said. They might talk about literally the car breaking down, mental breakdowns, breaking something down like you're planning it or chunking it out, a breakdown of a project into different pieces. Sometimes people will say, well, breakdowns when something doesn't work. And all of these are valid interpretations. And I want to use today a specialized meaning for the word, a different meaning. And that's why I'm asking you to separate it from that conventional use. The meaning I'm going to introduce you to probably includes most of those conventional uses, but is not the same as it. And I know it's a bit of an unusual term, the way I'm using it. And in that sense, it's a bit of an unusual term for things that happen unexpectedly, things that we're not prepared for. I'll say that again. It's for things that happen unexpectedly and that we're not prepared for, so they impact us. And everyday life is about dealing with these interruptions and changes to the flow of our expectations. Look, if you think about your day, you probably plan your day, or many people do. I might finish work, or before you finish work in the afternoon, look at what you've achieved and how well you went, what you did and didn't get done, and you set it up for the next day. So my days are pretty much like this. Or your days are probably pretty much like this. Let's see if I've kind of got it right for you. Like, you wake up early, feeling refreshed. Your partner's awake if you have one, and you greet them. You leap out of bed feeling good. If you've got kids, you can hear they're already up and are getting ready for school, or just happily playing in another room. And if you haven't, perhaps you go for a walk, or you go to the gym, you have a nice breakfast and some coffee, and you're feeling great, thinking about everything you're going to achieve in the day. If you're coming into work, I know we might be working at home, but if you're coming into work, your commute is pleasant. If you're on a train, you've read a book you enjoy, and if you're driving, the traffic's smooth, there's no traffic jams. You arrive at work, you've got a plan for the day, and you just start working through it. And the people who come and see you understand if you can't speak to them in that moment, and you schedule a time. You get to the end of the day, you feel really good with what you've got done. It went to plan. You go home, you have a healthy meal. You might go out and have a great night out. But you come home, and even if you're tired, you get back for a good night's sleep, even if it's short, and on we go for the next day. Is your life like that? Just run smoothly without interruptions? No. No, probably not. You know, the changes in the world around us and in our own day impact us. Have you noticed, if you have kids, well, they don't always do quite what you'd like in the morning. And if you don't, other things go wrong. Drive to work, or you catch public transport and the train is late, or you miss it, or there's a traffic jam. And we arrive at work and we had those things we knew we wanted to do, but we get caught up reading an email from someone who's a bit annoyed, but we get sucked into it. And then someone comes and visits it. There's calls, there's interruptions, there's overruns. The ledger you've prepared so carefully doesn't balance, that kind of thing. So you can see we have expectations and anticipations of the future. And when circumstances interrupt and disrupt these expectations and anticipations, that's when I'm going to say there's a breakdown. And a breakdown, therefore, is an interruption to the normally invisible flow of living. And I'll say a little bit more about that, because a lot of things we're doing, for example, I've got a computer on in the background. And while that computer is running, I am not aware of the fact that it's being powered by electricity, which comes through hundreds of miles of cables from a power station somewhere where there's people working to keep that happening for me. But if the power goes off and the computer shut down while I'm in the middle of this video, it would be a breakdown. And this idea of the normally invisible flow is the fact that the power's on and my computer's on is normally invisible to me. It doesn't occur to me. It's not top of mind. I might intellectually know it, but we just go about our lives without being aware of almost the miraculousness of these things. But if they go away, they stop being invisible and they stand out. If the power stopped, the power network would stand out for me, and I would need to go and deal with it. But the interesting piece here is the breakdown is not the circumstance itself. The power going out would not be the breakdown, even if there was a technical breakdown in the system somewhere, not how I'm using the word. The breakdown is in our assessments of the situation and our experience of the circumstance. It's a breakdown if I found it frustrating or annoying or upsetting, or now I had a deadline and I wouldn't be able to meet it, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? It's not the circumstance. It's about how we react to the circumstance. So I'm going to give it a little technical definition here. You can read it off the screen. A breakdown is a shift in the assessment made by a particular observer, a human being normally in our case, about what is or is not possible for them. It's about a change in what they expect of the future. A breakdown is a shift in the assessment made by a particular observer about what is or is not possible for them, and it's a change in what they expect of the future. So in this sense, the particular observer means the same event might change and one person loves it and one person doesn't. And also what is or is not possible. So a breakdown could be positive. If I won the lottery, which would be remarkable given I haven't bought a ticket, but if I did, that would, in my mind, I think that would be a really positive breakdown. There's amazing things I could do if I had a whole lot of money. So it would be a breakdown, but a positive one. So let's think about this. Imagine 3 people watching a weather report. It's pretty apt these days if you're in Sydney or up, where there's been a lot of rain and flooding recently. But just imagine somewhere that it's not flooding, but you've turned up for a holiday in the sun and you're in the airport and you notice 3 people watching the weather. The first one is someone who's just arrived and they noticed it's going to be gentle, solid, but not torrential rain for the next 10 days, the entire duration of their holiday. And for them, it's a negative breakdown. Their whole expectations of fun in the sun have been dashed. The second person has just finished their holiday and has just had a wonderful time and they're on the way home. And the news or the weather just goes over their head. They don't really even notice it. They're not interested in the weather. So it's not a positive or a negative breakdown for them because it's not so heavy that flights are going to stop. And the third person is a local farmer. And she is jumping up and down with excitement because it's not too heavy. It's not going to flood the land. It's going to be just what it needs to plant an extra crop for the season. So this is a positive breakdown for her. It's going to mean a bumper harvest and whatever comes with that. So 3 people, same circumstances. It's going to rain for the next 10 days in a gentle or medium way. But for one person, a negative breakdown. One person is not a breakdown. They barely notice. And one person, it's a positive breakdown. So when you think about this, it's an integral part of life, the fact that we need to continually manage these interruptions to the flow of life and continually deal with the unexpected. As we looked at the beginning, every workday seems to be filled with the unexpected. Now, sometimes these are sort of predictable breakdowns. Some things shouldn't be unexpected because the unexpected sort of has happened several times. and all we've ever done is complain about them. But they occur to us as breakdowns nonetheless. And I'm curious, or I invite you to be curious, about what you think might be some everyday and significant, and some significant, so some everyday and some significant breakdowns that you have or could have related to work. And one way to think about this is, what do you complain about but do nothing to change? So in other words, what often happens or does happen or could happen to interrupt the smooth flow of your day and of getting work done? So again, please stop the video. Take yourself a minute or 5 minutes and think about this. What gets in the way of the smooth flow of your day? They mightn't happen every day, but you can see that they happen. So the greatest value is definitely to pause and do this thinking. Okay, welcome back. So things will happen that are disruptive to us. And my claim, or a claim by many in the work I do of leadership, would be what counts is who we are in relationship to those things, or who we are in the face of the circumstances. Things happen, but who am I going to be when they do? So an example, and you could imagine this, imagine that you're driving to meet an important person, a stakeholder, someone who's significant. Maybe it's the DepSec and your job is important, or you're on the way to a job interview for a new position you really want. And there's a traffic jam and it's going to make you late. So imagine that. And then reflect on, are you going to arrive stressed or relaxed? You're going to be late for something really important. Now, do you arrive stressed or relaxed? And do you have a say in whether you arrive stressed or relaxed, or how you are? So again, you might want to stop the video just to pause it for a moment and think. If not right now, having a chat with a colleague could be useful. But do you get a say in how you are, your emotional and physical reaction to breakdowns? As I've said, the work here in this video is all in your thinking. I'm really just trying to perturb it and set you up to see things perhaps you haven't noticed. So I do invite you to set a timer, perhaps take 3 minutes. And welcome back. So another thinking task. And this is to reflect quietly on your role or your roles as managers, leaders, and collaborators from the context of breakdowns. And think about what you see. Again, you might want to stop the video or just take a moment. And again, this is in particular could be a good conversation to have with your other colleagues or people around you who've watched this video. So you're not using strange jargon words with them like breakdowns. But to think about what is it that breaks the flow of your work and how are you in relation to it? Or what is it that breaks the flow of your work in the context of being leaders and managers and collaborators? Okay, welcome back. So one interpretation of the difference between management and leadership is in relation to breakdowns. And I say one interpretation because there are many, many interpretations of what is leadership and what is management. So I'm not claiming this interpretation is the truth or the only way to look at this, but I do find it is a useful way to look at it. And in this interpretation, in management or in managing, our job is to anticipate breakdowns and prevent them, or to deal with the ones that do occur so that you can keep delivering the status quo. So managing is about keeping going with business as usual, making sure it's not interrupted, and anticipating reasonably anticipatable change. Whereas it leads, well, let me just pop a little slide up for that one. We anticipate likely breakdowns and deal with the ones that do occur in order to keep delivering the status quo. Leadership, on the other hand, is about creating breakdowns, because leadership is about creating something new, doing something different, transformation even. And if we're going to bring about something new, we need to learn and adapt, and our expectations of the future are going to be different. So in leading, we create breakdowns for the sake of creating something new, to bring about learning and to create change. So if this is the case, then the role of a leader is creating breakdowns for the organisation and their people. And I invite you to reflect on that. It's a great question to take away and discuss in a group. If the role of the leader, or to what extent do you agree, or how do you see it might be useful to think about the role of the leader as in creating breakdowns, bringing about learning opportunities, bringing about something new, contrasting with the equally important job of managers, which is to keep the status quo going. Notice that many of us have both leadership and management responsibilities in our job. So sometimes they are in a tension. Part of our job is operational delivery this week. That's us being the manager or the producer. But another part of our job might be improving business processes, strategic direction, and how we can do things better in the future, which is about leadership, bringing about the new, which could take our staff and people away from delivering this week. So again, I invite you to have a discussion with colleagues about this. How useful do you think this interpretation could be for thinking about the work you do? So if you've been working with me for a while, you may have a personal reflection topic, something in your world that's not going as well as you want it to, that you've reflected on in with some of the other distinctions we've covered. And if not, that's fine too. Just think about something at work or in life that you'd like to be going better. So it might be problematic or a challenge for you at the moment, or it might be something that's just going fine, but you really like to take it up a notch, to level up. So pick one of those. And after the video is finished, or you could pause it and do this now, is to look at this situation from the point of view of breakdowns and make some notes. In particular, look at what is the breakdown for you. Now, remember the distinction that the breakdown is not the circumstance. So, for example, if you have somebody who delivers work late and you find that as a breakdown, it gets on your goat. We're not talking about the fact that they deliver work late. That's the circumstances. It's what makes someone delivering work late a breakdown for you. Why is it problematic for you at this point in how you deal with that? And then consider what actions you could now take, what requests you might make, what offers. Are there decisions or declarations you need to make, or missing conversations to start to deal with the breakdown, or to declare, to put on the table the breakdown? So those of you who have worked with me with the commitment cycle or conversations for action, we've looked at the cycle from preparing, making requests, or opening a negotiation, negotiating, getting a commitment, working in a delivery phase, getting what we've requested delivered, and evaluating how it went. And there can be breakdowns in any of these parts. For example, in the delivery phase, or the what is called the delivery phase, perhaps you're not getting regular updates on progress, or people aren't tracking how well they're going against the deadline and what they need to do. And you may be concerned. This is a breakdown. But do you need to be stressed, or do you need to deal with it? Does that make sense? And if you notice it, what actions do you need to take? Is there an offer, a request, a decision, or a conversation you need to have? And if so, what is it? Or what are they? So if you want to do that now, stop the video. And if you want to save that question to the end, please do so. So what is the breakdown? And what is the breakdown for you, rather than the circumstance? What makes it a breakdown? And here's an observation to reflect on. When breakdowns are hidden or not declared to those who care, that is, transparency is missing, there's something hidden, messes occur. And in terms of work, delivery of work in the workplace, this is a common occurrence in my experience. People might be late delivering something, they're running behind schedule, but they don't declare the breakdown. There's no transparency that there is a breakdown, that there is a disruption to the flow, that there's likely to be a late delivery, for example. So I want to read it again. When breakdowns are hidden or not declared to those who care about the circumstances, that is, there is no transparency, messes occur, things go wrong. And if you're working on a major project or with stakeholders in positions of authority where there's a lot at stake, it can really be a mess. An example of this, I worked with someone some years ago. They were a branch head in the department, and one of their staff members was working on a survey, and they'd got or received double the number of responses they had expected. And the secretary of that department had wanted the summary of this survey delivered by a particular date. The staff member who was working on it it seems that the staff member who was working on it was afraid to come to the branch head and declare the problem. So they hid the fact that they were falling behind. They got stressed and worked long hours, but they didn't make any requests. So what started off as a breakdown for one person, failing to declare it, to put it in the open, caused a breakdown for the branch head, who then got stressed and upset, which caused a breakdown for the secretary, and I suspect for the minister. So there were significant consequences of that chain of events. So action and practice. We don't get better at doing things. We will not get better at declaring and dealing with breakdowns, or with working with who we are in the face of a breakdown, which is often about moods, if we don't practice and take specific actions. Otherwise, it's like a tennis player who notices there's something off in their serve, but takes no action to change it, to improve. Often this requires going back to basics. They just keep complaining about the fact that their serve is off. It's not, we'd probably think that was pretty foolish. But at work, it seems many of us do this. So what actions can you take, and what will you practice to better anticipate breakdowns, to declare breakdowns when they come up, and to work with yourself so that who you are when you face breakdowns is more resourceful. Again, when the video is finished, stop and make some notes, or if you want to do it now, stop the video and do it, and and then come back to finish. Okay, well, that's been an introduction to breakdowns. You probably have an idea of the concept at this point, but the concept is only a small piece. It is in the practice that knowledge becomes real. You've probably heard the metaphor of bicycle riding. You can get the concept. The physics of wheels rotating causes forces that help the bike stay up, which are not there if the bike is stationary. So you need to get a bicycle to move, and then you need to practice balance. It's great theory, but when you go to get on it, it's in the practice that you learn and figure it out and get it in your body. So what do you need? To repeat myself, what do you need to be doing? What actions and practices will you put in place to become masterful in dealing with breakdowns?